Hey everyone, welcome to the Being Patient podcast. I'm Deborah Kahn, founder of Being Patient. When my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, I decided to use my skills as a journalist in a different way. Frustrated by the lack of information on science and the inability to get different expert opinions, I decided to quit my job at the Wall Street Journal to create a better platform for people impacted by dementia. We are a community where news and information is created by our team of journalists. We ask tough questions and we simplify the science so that anyone can understand. We don't only cover disease, but delve into the latest research on what it takes to keep our brains healthy. We invite the experts and ask your questions. Here's today's podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Being Patient Perspectives. I'm Deborah Kahn, founder of Being Patient. As you know, Perspectives is our series talking to people who have been diagnosed with dementia, looking at the disease from their first-person perspective. So I'm very happy today to have with us Michele Hall and her husband, Doug, who started this journey, or actually got a diagnosis a couple years ago now, and have joined us to share their story. Michele and Doug, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So, Michele, I want to start, and I like asking this question because I'm starting to see a pattern in people's answers. But when did you were an attorney, you had a pretty demanding job. In hindsight, when were the first signs of maybe something was wrong? Not necessarily at the time you went to the doctors and thought, something is really wrong, but were there any, very early signs that maybe in hindsight are recognizable now?
For me, it was very, very clear because I I needed to go to a doctor's office because I'd hurt my hand. And let me hear, what else?
You had to get the pen.
Oh, yes. I couldn't fill out the form. So when you fill out all those things, when you go to a doctor, you have all those. First of all, I couldn't recognize anything, no words, nothing. And then I tried to figure out what the problem was on my own, couldn't figure it out. Then at one point, help me again here.
Work appointments and judges.
Yeah. What happened that was really telling was I couldn't spell. All of a sudden, I couldn't spell. I couldn't spell the word cup. And I tried it for like a half hour. None of the words made any sense. It was all just a mix match. It was horrible. And I called him crying.
So you knew what a cup was, and you knew it's just, you could not articulate could you say cup? I mean, what, or nope. You just couldn't write it?
No. And
you looked at a cup and you didn't know what it was?
No, I kept saying, I said to my own brain, I said, what's going on here? You know how to spell? Couldn't do it. I mean, everything stopped me in my tracks. You would think after that you would go and really get some help, which I didn't really do that. I thought it was something that was going to go away on its own. I still worked. For 10 years, I was at the sheriff's office. So I was working with my team, which was only 2 other people. And they noticed it here and there. And then further down, when I would be in meetings, just the words would come out nothing at all. And everybody still said, this is something that's a fluke, we'll figure it out. Everybody kind of took it as, don't worry, this will just be gone soon.
Did it happen I'm thinking of that scene from Still Alice when she's up at the podium and that was you?
That was me actually right there, just like that movie was. And I was the head of FAPA, Florida Association of Police Attorneys, for the state of Florida. And I was kind of excited because they kind of rotate, but it was my time and we're in this big, huge place. And I couldn't welcome anybody. I went, wow. And I tried it again and my mouth just did not do the right thing. And so I had to have somebody come up on the stage, fill up that page. And it's still, that one thing still bothers me.
I can imagine. I mean, it's like you're an intelligent, very educated woman, you're an attorney. And I can imagine how that, I mean, I can't, but I can imagine. Doug, were you seeing any signs at home at this time? I mean, Michele was only 53 years old 2 years ago. That's young, you know. 53 is not when we're thinking about Alzheimer's in most cases.
Didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what it was. Never heard of it.
Yeah, we probably, like most people, know someone's grandparent and, you know, heard the words and saw the news stories from time to time, but really never dug in to really appreciate what it is or understand it. And so there were some signs around the house, not crazy signs, but a mistaken ingredient in the recipe or a wrong amount, or reminding me to take out the trash one too many times. Things like that. But I think it was probably more pronounced at her job and her assistants. You know, being general counsel, she has a lot going on and has to go to court and be in meetings and be on calls with legislators and things like that. And so there was some feedback from her assistants. And for a while, they sort of helped, you know, not cover up, but sort of supplement her memory and her scheduling and things like that.
Yeah.
But after a while, it became apparent that it was too much. And initially, her doctor said it's stress. It's just stress. It had a change of administrations, and a new sheriff was in town, literally.
Yeah.
It was a very stressful work environment. And so they said, you know, eliminate the stress. So she retired, and it didn't get any better. It didn't really change.
That is such a common story we hear. And I'm wondering, Michele, I mean, a lot of people who we interview say it's almost like they were multitasking became impossible, right? So keeping track of something like a calendar or something. Did you experience that at all? Like, could you still multitask?
No.
You couldn't. But could you multitask previously and then all of a sudden you couldn't? I mean,
yes, I was really good before. I could be doing one thing over here and one thing over here, but everything kind of stopped, and the stress was horrible. And looking back, I should have just given in. The new sheriff wanted different people, and you know, people said, "Don't let him get away with this. Don't let him." And I should have just said, "Okay, I give up."
But you were thinking stress was the catalyst to all of this. So take us on, I mean, you know, misdiagnosis, not being diagnosed is a very common story, especially for someone your age, right? I mean, most doctors wouldn't first think, oh, it's Alzheimer's, right? So tell us a little bit about how, I mean, you know, a lot of people say it's a very long journey to diagnosis, right? How did it happen for you? How did you get diagnosed?
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. We went to a neurologist in our town, and he said, you know, we'd look at the scan, we'd see what it looked like. He actually showed us scan by scan by scan, each one. And at the end, he said, you're lucky. It's Christmas. Have a great time. You're done. There's no problem at all. I mean, we kept saying, are you sure? He said, yes, yes, yes. And it was
wait, let me just interrupt you there. What test did he give you to determine nothing was wrong?
PET scan, I think. PET scan.
So you had a PET scan and they didn't find any plaque, obviously, or that because they're looking when you get a PET.
Bad at all. And he said, have a good Merry Christmas. And that's when we turned around and left.
She had both an MRI. She had a psychological evaluation, which showed some deficiencies in a few areas, which led to the recommendation to go see a neurologist. So we went to see our local neurologist, had an MRI and a PET scan. And he looked at both those and said, there's no sign of dementia whatsoever in any of these scans. So you don't have Alzheimer's, you don't have dementia. Congratulations. Go back and talk to your doctor about stress, the medications you're on, menopause, etc.
All that.
Always menopause for women. That's so common. It's just menopause, right?
So many people said too young. This is gonna go away. Too young, too young, too young. And
No family history.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so you're being told there's nothing wrong, you're fine, go home, live your life. And then what? Excuse me.
What did we do after that? We didn't go to.
Then we decided to just get a second opinion. And we have a family member who lives in Minnesota, and he said, come out to the Mayo Clinic. And so we looked into that, and we didn't even realize it at the time, there's a Mayo Clinic in Florida. So we called up there for an appointment, and they said, sorry, we don't take your insurance. We're on HMO at the time. I said, okay, it's just an appointment, can I self-pay? They said, sure, send us $10,000. And then you'll be here for a couple of days of testing. We'll probably ask you for another $10,000. And then I said, okay, what kind of insurance do you take? So we ended up changing our insurance to a different kind of insurance, a PPO, just so we could go to Mayo. We went to Mayo and met Dr. Day, who was outstanding. He looked at the same scans and said, yeah, we can't see any evidence of any kind of dementia or Alzheimer's, but sometimes in younger people, because the brain is active, it masks the tests and the scans, and you can't see it. Yeah. And so he said, let's just be sure and do a spinal tap. And so they did a spinal tap, and within the spinal fluid, there were some markers for Alzheimer's, and they conducted the tau test, which showed that she had the markers and indications that she was a positive for Alzheimer's disease.
So, but the PET scan did not reveal, if you have tau, you probably have plaque, right? Beta amyloid plaque.
Yeah, I think that person was nuts. I just don't think he did the right scans. He didn't do it the right way or
the
something.
First time. Yeah. And then so the confirmation of plaque or tau, obviously leads to a diagnosis. So at that point, when you're at Mayo, are they like, yes, this is confirmed early onset Alzheimer's, or are they looking at other things? Because there's different types of dementia. Especially at your age, you're young. So
they had taken everything else out. They said, we just can't find anything, so we're going to have to do this. And it was very clear. It was like 90% sure or something. And that's when things got really tough, though, because that's what I had to tell Mike. Doug told the kids before he took me, and I was like, what are you all sitting here for? What?
But finding out, that's another thing, in addition to how hard it was to get the final diagnosis. The other thing that really hit home is we found out because I got an email in the patient portal a day later. We didn't know anything when we left Mayo. We knew that nothing was confirmed, which we thought was good news. Yeah, we knew there were symptoms consistent with different things, which we talked about. And then the next day, you're never prepared for the diagnosis, especially when it's not in the family, and you've been looking for it for almost 2 years. I just got an email late at night that said you have test results, and opened it up and basically positive for Alzheimer's disease. And so this was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Tuesday night. So the next day, of course, I called. The doctor's gone for Thanksgiving. Thankfully, he had the nurse call back, but it was just like, yes, she's positive, and there's a number of medications she can take to help lessen the symptoms. And we'll set up a Zoom meeting with the doctor in 2 weeks. We're 2 weeks is forever, right? So we're completely in shock. We've been hit by a freight train. So, the whole process of getting a diagnosis, finding out, talking to the doctor, talking to the family was very, very traumatic. And I think we were sort of both in shock for, a couple weeks, a couple months.
No, it was, I mean, I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out. I didn't want my kids to see me go down in a, bowl of mud. And, I think it was a really long time, but I do remember the important parts, which is when people from the Alzheimer's folks called me, and they did, it's not what you were thinking. They called me and said, can we take a picture of you? And I thought, why do you want to take a picture of me? And they said, well, can we take a picture of you and your dog? And this is at my house. And again, I'm trying to figure it out. And I don't know if you would remember this because you were gone, but the Alzheimer folks tried to get all these people to go in remember where you put in all the stuff, everybody comes in.
The test or the conference?
No, like when Bo was out there, they wanted to see Bo because they wanted to see people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, play with your dog. Do that.
Is this the Alzheimer's Association you're talking about, or the?
Yeah, so this was after the diagnosis, and we were in shock. One of the saving graces was we got connected with the Alzheimer's Association, and they were fantastic. And we got a lot of resources from them. The people in the Florida group and now the national group that we met have been really, really helpful. They got us in some peer groups. And they also, Michelle really wanted to find people in her situation because she thought she was the only one with early onset Alzheimer's anywhere near us. And it was
I was by myself. And then finally Bernice, I don't know if you knew who she is, but she's with the Alzheimer's Association. And she said, oh, I think there's one person. Oh no, there's two in your area. And that's Kelly Bone and Deb.
You were okay. So this is important too. So I want to go back a little bit because I think what you bring up is so important for any doctor who is watching this. Like, nobody wants an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and it's probably one of the hardest things in the world that has ever happened to both of you as caregiver and partners, as someone diagnosed and their partner. That unavailability of just having someone to talk to you who knows more about this disease is so important. And to face it, we hear this over and over again, and it makes me think, why is this? Why, when you get this life-altering diagnosis, is no one available to sit down with you and spend the right time? And I'm not saying it happens in all cases, but it happens a lot. And I can just only imagine, I wasn't present when my mom was diagnosed, but it really was like an earthquake for our family. It's like, well, what do we do next? And so I just wanted to point this out because we hear this over and over again. And I want to actually ask you this question. In hindsight, what would have made that better for you? I mean, the fact that you get inside in your computer a diagnosis, and then, you're like, what do we do now? And who do we call? And, oh, it's Thanksgiving, our doctor's not available. What would have made that better for you?
I don't know. I mean, there was no way to sugarcoat it. They had to tell me the bad news. And then everybody kept saying, don't worry, yeah, well, no, there's a reason to worry there. I know that Mayo has just implemented a psychiatrist to help with some of that transition. That's the first time we've seen it until a few days ago, but finally somebody's doing that, because that's what I thought. When it was done with me, I was like, well, okay, nobody wants to talk to me anymore,
You felt alone.
Yes.
And what about you, Doug? I mean, you're getting this diagnosis. This is like, so what would have helped you?
It was a rough couple of days because first, it's only me, and like, do I tell her? How do I tell her? What about the kids? And just
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and I sort of understand now the delay in the appointment with the doctor, because of course we just started like we would normally do. We just started researching the heck out of it and networking, and so by the time we talked to Dr. Day when he came back from vacation, and again, I think they purposely scheduled that meeting a couple weeks out.
Yeah.
We had 50 questions written down, and he spent probably an hour and a half with us, and he was fantastic. So I don't fault him, and everyone goes on vacation. It was a fault of the calendar a little bit, and the nurse called back pretty quickly. But I think, I like their approach now with getting a social worker, psychiatrist involved. If that was early in the process, if we'd gotten hooked up with the Alzheimer's Association earlier, that probably would have helped.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think there's a lot of buffer for just that life, altering shock.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I like what you said too, that Michele, that meeting other people who were in this journey is what really saved you. It's like, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, the Alzheimer's Association connected you with other people in your area. So what did that mean to you? And what did it look like to sit down and talk to someone who was already diagnosed about their experience?
Well, they had the experience, first of all, that like I didn't really understand. They know all the ups and downs. For instance, when we first met Kelly and her husband, she said, you have to take a nap in the morning or in the afternoon. She said, one or the other. You must do this. And I was like, I'm not a napper. Oh, it changed my whole life. It made everything better. It's they have the knowledge and they're wonderful. And now we have done it for other people here and there. We were just with another couple. He was diagnosed, I don't know, Glenn.
A little bit before you.
Yeah, he's about my age, but he's not in the same wave. He's kind of just having fun and not really taking it seriously right now. But I like that we can have conversations over the phone. We can have conversations over Zoom. And I think that makes some people feel better, even though you're not in the room with them.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how you're caring for yourself today. I love that, you are living life. This is not, it seems like your advocacy work means a lot to you. I know you were earlier telling me about actually taking Aduhelm, which is, as we know, got off to a rocky start, the new medication that a lot of people can't take just because it's too expensive and not covered by insurance and yet. But tell us a little bit about that journey, about, first, how did you get into advocacy? And then tell us a little bit about what you're doing for yourself to treat, the disease and care for yourself.
Well, the advocacy part started again with Alzheimer's people. They were fabulous. They've done it to, I think with a lot of people. They just start with, oh, can you just write down some of your information? And then they, they're good. They're sneaky about it. They get you in little by little by little. And then you realize that, you're going to go talk to somebody, or you're going to go to get more information, or the Alzheimer's Association is amazing. I mean, I would do anything for them. And I don't have the language skills, I feel like, which is why I usually like to have him by me. But I'm getting better. I think that the being able to make other people feel good, that they're not the only one. So we had this group, Kelly, me, and Deb. And then in the middle of the conference from DC, I had seen this man, younger man, running around with his hair all wet and crazy. And I kept thinking, what is this guy? And he tried to reach out and tap me at one point. Finally, he said, does anybody know Michele Hall? I don't even know where he got my name, but I said, yeah. And he goes, Finally, I found one more person. And I guess there's not anybody there except for, there's not another man there anyway. So he was thrilled. And now we have another little group.
Yeah, that's nice. How did he find out about you?
I don't know, but a couple of people said, "Guy looking for you," and you
Right.
have wet hair.
Right. So, Doug, we were talking earlier about Aduhelm and everything. Could you tell us a little bit about that decision to go on Aduhelm? It was obviously it's a drug that was in the news a lot. It was off to a rocky start with the FDA approval and then later CMS or Medicare declining coverage. Can you tell us from your perspective? I mean, you guys are too young for Medicare, but what was that like deciding to go on this drug?
I'm on Medicare.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, they give you all your money up front, basically, don't they?
When you qualify for Medicare or Social Security disability, you automatically get offered Medicare medical insurance 2 years later.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that.
Diagnosis. She was eligible for Medicare, so she's been on Medicare for maybe a year, which has been great. I mean, it's a great government program for people in our situation.
And people are waiting. I gotta wait until I can get this.
Yeah, the 2 year wait is a long time for some people. Luckily, we didn't have a lot of medical expenses in those 2 years. But we had, Dr. Day at the Mayo Clinic, as well as Dr. Amanda Smith at University of South Florida, as well as the Ross Camp Institute here locally. That's who we sort of rely on. And they all were talking about Aduhelm. It was sort of the talk of the Alzheimer's community for a long time. And I think, when you look at the 50 years and billions of dollars of research, that hasn't gotten us very far in some respects with, trying to cure, trying to slow down the progress of Alzheimer's. It's frustrating, but I think in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of progress. And so we had been keeping tabs on Aduhelm, reading a lot about it. The phase 1 stuff was very positive. So positive, they skipped phase 2, went to phase 3, which coincided with the start of COVID. Yeah. Total disaster. They stopped it early. Everyone's disappointed. And then someone at Biogen really zeroed in on this specific data, and they went to the FDA based on that. No one thought they were going to be approved, including every doctor on their independent physician panel that voted against it, and it got approved. So the minute it got approved, we had already been educating ourselves about it. The efficacy was questionable, but had some encouraging data behind it. The side effects, 40% of people get brain bleeds or brain swelling, extremely concerning and serious. But we got all the data. We talked to our medical board of 3 neurologists. Michele and I read everything, and it's completely her decision, 100%. And after looking at all the data,
I mean, that's what it comes down to. There's nothing else going on.
Yeah,
so
it is.
If somebody later and greater comes up, I would jump.
Yeah. And this is the case. And, I guess the question, and just to inform our audience, you guys are really well informed on Aduhelm, obviously, but these MAB drugs, which are monoclonal antibody drugs, work to break up the plaque in the brain. And so we know that they can do that, but what we don't know is, does that stop Alzheimer's? So if you take away the plaque, what does that mean, right? Does that help cognition? Does that slow down the course of the disease? And that's the part we don't know. But as Michele states, because there's nothing else out there, a lot of pharma companies are going down this route and getting some very encouraging data. We're waiting for lecanemab. That's the next one that's up for approval. But, it's still kind of like the chicken and egg like scenario. It's like, okay, well, if these are very effective on preventing plaque or actually taking away the plaque that's already there, what does that mean to the equation of the entire disease? And nobody can answer that question yet. We don't have enough data around it. So, I admire people like you in the way that, you're helping. I mean, we're going to find out answers to those questions And, I'm just wondering though, since you started this drug, Doug, you said you guys haven't really noticed a change. Is that right? Or have you?
No, everybody has asked me that, of course, and I don't see a change. But for now, I'm good. I had, the only thing I had was I had really a hard headache is what I'd call it. And that was a symptom that I forgot, or else I would have taken Tylenol or something. But otherwise, I've had no problems. I mean, when I'm there, so, I'm there, once a month, and I just watch, TV, whatever TV is on, and then we go home, and it's not a bad situation until something bad shows up.
How long have you been on the drug for?
How much?
So she has had 8 doses. Her 9th dose is Tuesday, by the way. The way it's once a month, it's by IV. It takes about an hour and a half. And they titrate it up. So the first 2 doses were just 10% of a full dose. 3 and 4 were 30%, 5 and 6 were 70%, and 7 and 8 are 100%. So number 9 will be 100% as well. So she's only on her 3rd full dose.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we all know, for Alzheimer's, there's not a very specific test where, last year you were a 6 and now you're a 7.5. Congratulations. Yeah. We did just come though from her annual appointment at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and on one of the tests, I think it's the CAD, I forget the acronym, but she just went up barely. The cognitive,
that's what you want,
something
to
test.
Either stay where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a 3.5. She went to a 4.0 on an 18-point scale. And they thought that was really good. They would have expected her to go up by a point and a half, 2 points.
And so maybe that's that. Maybe
so,
that's what we're seeing, but.
Yeah, the very interesting thing is she had a PET scan with contrast when she was up there, and we're going to get those results in the next month or so. And we're going to compare that to her scan of a year ago and see if there's a difference in the plaque, which will be very, very interesting. So we're looking forward to seeing that. But, we're hopeful that it helps in some way, shape, or form. We're monitoring the news, talking to our doctors on a regular basis to see what, and hopefully it's sort of like the cycle of AIDS drugs, right? Every next generation is a small step forward to the point where you're at now where, most people with HIV don't get AIDS anymore. So we're hoping it follows that same path. But right now we're on that, original crazy expensive cocktail that nobody knows what's in it and how it's going to work. And it's so expensive and nobody wants to cover it.
Yeah. And that's the problem too, right? It's like you need to have extra money in the bank in order to afford this. It's not available to everyone who can't, right? And it's
also, have some people who say, I want to be in a trial and take that risk.
Yes.
I don't have to take that risk.
Yes.
My situation.
We couldn't be more disappointed and upset with the CMS decision, because here's something that could be really helpful to 6.5 or maybe 2 million of the 6.5 million people that have Alzheimer's. And, the FDA, the medical arm, approved it. And the money people, CMS, said, oh, we're not going to pay for it, which is very unusual in how the process usually goes. And so there's millions of people that should potentially have access to this drug that don't. So we were lucky because we got in immediately. And so now we're in, but no one else can get in unless you're in a trial, which is 50-50, whether you get it or not, for a year or 18 months. At that point, it might be too late for you.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. We couldn't disagree more with that decision. We think it's really robbing a lot of people of their chance to see if this drug, the only one that's available now, could help them.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Yeah.
I feel strongly about it.
Wow.
No, but that's, I mean, you raise really great points. And it's what a lot of people are facing right now. The bureaucratic nightmare of drug approvals. It's not a kind process, So we're running out of time, so I just want to wrap up here. And Michele, from your perspective, you've now been traveling on this journey for a couple of years now since you've had your diagnosis. Tell us a little bit about your outlook on life today.
Well, my outlook on life is good. It's, earlier when I was telling you what I like to do, what I do, I got very lucky because what happened to me left me pretty much what I would like to be doing anyway. I like to run in the preserve. I like to do this. So it's good. Now, if somebody works somewhere else and it's now she can't, you can't do what you're supposed to do, that's a different thing. But for me, I got my money. Doug's here. I have a partner to help me. And it's just not that bad yet. I mean, I have to put that yet when I talk to people. People all the time say, oh, I thought you had this disease, but you're fine. And I
Right.
have to say, I am fine
Yeah.
right now.
That's great. It's great to hear. And one thing I will note is I feel like the people who are doing the best are the people who have really supportive partners to go on this journey together, right? And I can tell with the two of you, this is both of your journeys. And so that's
the kids. Our kids are really, at least they, twice a week.
yeah.
Those two.
Yeah, that completely. So thank you both so much for sharing your stories. I really love these interviews. I think they really give a lot of people great information and a lot of comfort. So thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to check in with you at a later date, but thank you for sharing your story.
Sure.
Thanks,
you very
Deborah.
much.
Thanks for all you do as well.
Thank you. So if you missed any of this interview or you want to hear more, don't forget to go to beingpatient.com, sign up for our newsletter. We tell you about upcoming talks that we're having there. And don't forget to join our Facebook page if you haven't already. Thanks everyone for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. For more information on upcoming interviews, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at beingpatient.com. That's beingpatient.com. And send us any feedback you may have, whether it's someone you want us to interview or any comment about our podcast series. You can do so by emailing info@beingpatient.com. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Deborah Kahn.